Hi, everybody. I always like to start my live chats with this photo of Abby and Libby because this case is about them and hopefully finally getting justice. I believe we might be getting the end of the trial this week or next week. So it remains to be seen how it's all going to play out. Hopefully, if Richard Allen truly was Bridge Guy, he will be found guilty. If not, then he should not be found guilty. So here we go. If people are new to my live chats, I haven't shown this in a while. I do some like chat overview. So I have slow mode on. You cannot type your next chat message for another 20 seconds because there's been some issues with like spamming the chat. All types of opinions are welcome. Just be polite, or moderators will ban anyone being rude or commenting negatively about people instead of chatting about the case facts. I try and keep this about the case facts. Click the name of an annoying person in the chat to block them. I never see hundreds of comments, so use the chat to talk to other people. Sorry, but I'm a little busy. In the top of the chat box, it defaults to show top chat, but you can change that to live chat to see all the comments. I try not to curse, but I can't promise anything. I do not highlight comments with curses in them. So I missed Friday's session. I've been at almost every session of the trial except two, and then Friday, I was filming an episode of Cooking with Strangers with two women I met in the line at the trial. So I missed it. Today I reviewed like some of the local media coverage. So I'm going to review about 8 slides with updates on the Friday hearing. And then I'm going to review about 3 pages of my notes from yesterday, Saturday in the courtroom from the morning session before we were let out for the weekend. Here we go. On November, let me just make sure you can see this. Please stand by. I'm messing up already. On November 1st, Friday's session, somebody named Christopher Guti testified. He worked for the Hammond Police Department since 2005 and has done some work on the Delphi murders investigation. He was assigned to an FBI task force in 2014. His work on the Delphi case mostly consisted of interviews for a little more than 2 weeks. The defense attorney, Jennifer Auger, showed him a report from February 19th, 2017, the day he interviewed, somebody forgot an ED, the day he interviewed, anyway, keep it moving. The day he interviewed Brad Weber, who lives at the end of the private drive under the bridge. However, he could not say if Weber told him he went straight home from work or not. There's an issue where he checked out at 2:02 p.m. and says it takes about 20 to 25 minutes to get home, which would mean he was driving his van on the private drive, which is only really his driveway, at around 2:30 when Richard Allen said he got interrupted when he saw a van. So coming up, the defense, I'm sure, is going to try to discredit Brad Weber really arriving home around 2:30 or if he stopped other places. So it did not seem like this Christopher Guti was a good witness to discredit Brad Weber. Moving along. Also the same day, Dr. Deanna Dwenger, she is the Director of Behavioral Health for the Indiana Department of Correction since 2021 and worked closely with Dr. Walla's supervisor. Dr. Walla is the woman who had a lot of sessions with Richard Allen, and apparently in one of them, he said a fairly detailed description of how this crime played out, where he said he was Bridge Guy and killed Abby and Libby. So she said Walla informed her she had a special interest in the case in early 2023. After Rick was assigned to her and recommended some true crime podcasts for Dwenger. Dwenger thought it was unusual for Walla to visit a crime scene related to someone she was working with, but that visit happened before Dr. Walla started treating Rick. And during her testimony, it was revealed that Dr. Walla said she was just driving through that area in Indiana. And so she stopped at the bridge and the trail, but she did not specifically go to Delphi just to look at the bridge and stuff. Dwenger did not know why Rick was placed in solitary confinement and had concerns about the constant video surveillance of him and recommended the camera be removed. So she said solitary confinement is not good for someone's mental health and the longer someone is in solitary, the worse their mental health can get. She said it was the Department of Corrections policy that someone with serious mental illness, also known as SMI, should not be in solitary for more than 30 days. So Rick was in solitary confinement at Westville for about 13 months from early November 2022 until December 2023, when he got moved to Wabash Prison. She continued, it was not a therapeutic setting and could be toxic to the welfare of someone with mental health issues. There are policies to make sure someone with SMI does not continue to decompensate, but none of those policies were used for Rick, who wasn't diagnosed as SMI until April 2023. Wallow believed Rick was feigning. For people who don't know, that means feigning symptoms, and asked a psychiatrist to see Rick. They discussed involuntary medicine because his symptoms were getting worse and he was not sleeping. Haldol is an antipsychotic medication, and it was administered to help with Rick's psychosis. The defense attempted to ask about legal action. The defense attempted to ask about legal action involving the Department of Correction in 2012. That led to an objection from the state, which Gull sustained. Moving along. Also on Friday, we heard from Brad Heath. He drove to Anderson's grain elevator, which is, if you see a Google image from the satellite or a plane or whatever, wherever, that's like the long white building across from CPS parking lot. So this guy, Brad Heath, was working. He drove to that business across from CPS, which is known as the Anderson's grain elevator, around 8:45 a.m. And at that time, he saw a parked car about halfway down the road. He estimated about 150 to 200 feet from where he was, but the car was not in the CPS lot, and he did not notice if there were other cars parked at CPS in the lot. This one is like more further down as you would drive from CPS to the Hoosier Harbor Store camera. When he drove past at 1:42 p.m., he said the car was still there. He described it as an older vehicle that was a faded dark blue, late 1980s or early 1990s model. He said it just looked out of place. So I guess he was working and he had to write down the time on his worksheet. So that's how he knew it was 8:45 and 1:42. Next up, finally, the guy known as Flannel Shirt Guy, at least online for a long time, David McCain said he was on the trails between 2 and 3 p.m. taking photographs. He recalled passing Cheyenne, who testified last week, that she was there from like 2:50 to after 4 p.m. Dave McCain parked at the Mears parking lot and saw 2 or 3 cars there. He left around 4 p.m. and did not see anyone walking on 300 North. He never saw or heard anything unusual. He gave the photos he took on the trail to police, just in case they would see somebody in the background or a car. I do not think they led to anything relevant. Also on the 1st, the next person to testify was former fire chief Darrell Sterrett. He told jurors about the nighttime search for the missing girls. He helped organize the hasty search, Hasty, on the night of February 13th. Quote, my thought was they were hunkered down, cold and scared, waiting for us to find them, Sterrett said. He also clarified a hasty search meant to quickly cover a lot of ground. The search consisted of 5 to 6 people and began around 9:30 or 10 p.m. and lasted until 2:30 a.m. They searched in the general area of the High Bridge. He thinks they briefly searched the east side of the bridge along with the north and south ends of the creek. Police and family members were also searching, and Sterrett recalled seeing flashlights across the creek as people searched for the girls, Abby and Libby. He said it was very dark during the search. The defense asked, did you check in the creek? He said, somebody may have. People did shine their lights into the creek and did not see any clothes. When asked if he searched the area southeast of the cemetery, Sterrett said he did not personally search in that area. Next up, this past Friday, I think Steve Mullen, this is his 4th time on the stand. The defense questioned him about the deleted interviews from the early days of the investigation when an error caused the police station's DVR which I believe is digital video recorder, to record over interviews conducted in the days after the girls vanished. So there's, I guess, a camera in the Delphi Police Department interrogation room. Police had a lot of people come in, and then the videos disappeared because of some overwriting issue or something like that. Gull previously ruled that these interviews were deleted due to human error, not in bad faith. The defense asked about Brad Weber's testimony, saying he returned home around 2:30 in a white van. Rick told Dr. Walla he led Abby and Libby down a hill to rape them before he was spooked by a passing van, and then he decided to kill Abby and Libby. The defense implied Brad Weber did not drive straight home from work and instead stopped to work on ATMs or drop off a trailer. This would change his timeline and not put him home at 2:30, around the time Libby's phone stopped moving at the murder scene. Weber denied this, saying those events occurred at another time. And yes, I was there when Brad Weber was testifying. He was very adamant that he went straight home after work on the day of the murders. Baldwin asked Mullen, "Are you aware if Brad Weber has changed his story?" Mullen said, quote, "Yes, there is some conflict about it," end quote. Mullen said Weber has a side job working on ATMs, but did tell Mullen he drove straight home from work on February 13th. Phone records backed up Weber's account of driving straight home after work. Baldwin pointed out that Weber owned a Sig Sauer gun, which Rick Allen owned a Sig Sauer gun. I did not see the exact type that Brad Weber owned. I know Rick's was a P226 Sig Sauer. But Mullen said Weber's gun was not found to be a match for the unspent round between Abby and Libby's bodies. So police did take Brad Weber's Sig Sauer, sent it to the Indiana State Police, and the analyst analyzed, I guess, test rounds, the cartridges from Brad Weber's Sig Sauer against the unspent round found next to Abby and Libby, and said this gun does not match. When they tested Rick's gun, they said it did. Mullen, he was asked if Richard Allen was ever mentioned in the thousands of tips they received. The answer was no. When asked about the search on February 13th, Mullen, sorry, let me hide that. No, sorry. When asked about the search on February 13th, Mullen stated he was not aware of any searchers going within 100 yards of where the girls were found. Mullen revealed there were trail cams in the area, but not pointed in the direction of the girls' bodies. Just a few more slides. Also, November 1st, Tobe Lesenby and his famous mustache testified. Lesenby said he didn't, Lesenby said he did not play a huge role in the investigation. When I read that, I was like, what? He was the sheriff of Carroll County who was supposedly leading the investigation. How does he not play a huge role in the investigation? When asked how many people he thought were involved in the murders, he said that initially he did not know, but after Richard Allen's arrest, he believed it to be only one person. The defense presented a deposition from August 2023, where Lesenby referenced believing that multiple people could have been involved. Quote, you felt 10 months after his arrest that at least two people were involved, end quote, Andrew Baldwin, the defense attorney, pointed out. Lesenby pointed out that in the early days of the investigation, some of the investigators, including Tony Liggett, believed multiple suspects could be involved. Quote, it was based upon the totality of the information provided to investigators at that time period, end quote, by Lesenby. During cross-examination, prosecutors pointed out how Lesenby admitted to not knowing much about the investigation. Again, what the heck? The jury asked Lesenby how many murders he had personally investigated. He said he had not personally investigated any. Also on Friday, Judge Gull ruled on various motions. There was a motion by the defense asking FBI agent Adam Pohl to be available and able to remotely testify. Pohl wrote the report that included Brad Weber's interview about driving home in his van on February 13th. Pohl is unable to travel due to working in Texas, and the defense wanted to speak to him about Weber's account as they continued to look to poke holes in his story. The Judge Gull denied the request to allow Pohl to remotely testify. Gull also denied another motion made by the defense that asked for them to present their alternative killing theory, which is essentially the odiness and stuff. I think I have one or two more slides. So this was not brought up at all in the trial. McClelland, at one point, they were talking about these Google searches that police investigated Rick's devices. I don't know if it was really referenced, if it was his home computer, his cell phone, or what. But they just referenced Rick's devices. So I guess the media is able to view these exhibits after the day is over for 15 minutes. The people like me, the nosy ass public, do not get that opportunity. But some of these, I guess, journalists wrote down what was on these Google searches on Rick's devices. So here we go. October 2022, which is when Rick was arrested. Search for a movie about a man being held against his will. Rick or someone using his device searched the following: Stalker 2012, Killing of a Sacred Deer, DEAR. I'm not sure if Rick wrote that wrong or somebody else, but I looked up online and that's a film called The Killing of a Sacred Deer, like the animal, DEER. Next up, man held hostage by teen. So these are Google searches. Somebody typed that in on Rick's device and then clicked enter to get some results. Applied ballistics Lafayette. Multiple searches for Delphi. This is from a local TV station. They said someone using the device also searched several times for Delphi murders, Monon High Bridge stories, Wildcat Valley Rifle Club, Should I Die Now, most disturbing movie ever, horrifying things I can watch, insidious things I can watch. I looked up the definition of insidious since Siri's taken a nap, and it said sneaky, treacherous, or harmful in a subtle way. What is the darkest expletive on Netflix? Most effed up, I'm assuming, most effed up things to watch on Netflix, disturbing and terrifying things on Netflix, and finally, Delphi murder update from 2022. That's enough for that. Hello. So I was in court yesterday from 9 to noon. I have 3 pages of notes and I'm going to read them now. Where are we here? Okay. So when Rick walked in, before we started, Rick's wife walked in briefly and then she left. And people assumed maybe she was going to be asked to testify. So she should not be in the court for, I guess, the early part of that day. She did not testify. So there were 2 female friends sitting in the family section, or Rick's family section. He came in, he went something like this. Like he smiled at that direction and made a heart emoji or whatever heart shape with his hands. That's that. I wrote down Rick talking a lot to Baldwin and Auger. He would turn around and look at an audience. So I also wrote this later. Today, Rick most talkative and interactive with the officers who are guarding him and the defense, but also staring and scowling and smiling at the audience. I've never seen him in like over 2 weeks this animated and like talking to people and looking and smiling. The most animated I'd seen him previously was when the prosecution was showing the 127 screenshots of supposedly his car going towards CPS. Here we go. What do we have here? I wrote, so yesterday, Saturday, I'm supposed to do my banner here. Here we go. Please stand by. Revealing what? What are we revealing here? There we go. So I wrote down, the first thing I wrote down was defense exhibit XX was admitted. And there was something about a movement Oh, there's 2 different or several different things of, videos. There's cell video of Rick in his prison cell. There's also movement video, which is when they held the camcorder, when Rick would leave his cell and go to be washed down in a shower after he was rolling around in his crap or something. I'll get to this stuff in a minute. Gull said there's some conversations about explicit scenes. Obviously, the jury has to see this. So then they moved the TV. There's like a huge 6-foot by 4-foot TV ish that we can sometimes see, but they pushed it like past the middle section of the what they call the well, I guess, which is where the jury, prosecution, and defense are. So only the jury could see the TV screen. However, Brad Rosie was sitting at the corner of the defense table, and the media is in the front row, apparently, so family members can't jump over and hurt Rick. And some of those media on the side apparently could see Brad Rosie's screen as these videos were playing. Moving along. McClelland said the state objects to all of these videos being shown to the jury. Gull said something about, I wrote down each video between April and June 2023. There were a total of 15 different videos of varying lengths. So Rosie said exhibit EEE shows the length of time each video is. He said some are 2 minutes, but I think some of them were up to 56 minutes each, which I'm not sure what they were showing. Rosie would say, okay, at this point, can I fast forward 2 minutes? Gull would say, you may. That repeated a lot. So I wrote, the jury entered at 9:26 a.m. yesterday. Page 238. So Max Baker is the intern. He really did not say a lot. So Max Baker is the intern for the defense. He apparently had this job to take these videos from Westville and kind of organize them and label them. So what do we have here? Baldwin said, pick up from yesterday's something. Receive a list from the state of Indiana about the camcorder videos. And there's some issue where some of these camcorder videos did not have a timestamp on them. And I guess Max Baker said yes. So I think the video camera in Rick's cell may show like the date and time. However, these camcorder videos did not show the date and time. So somebody had to go back and kind of clarify which video was from which day and time. So the defense said, did we prepare a thumb drive containing videos from April to June 2023 from Westville Prison? Max Baker answered yes. Movement videos. Again, that means the camcorder is being held by Westville prison guards as they take Rick out of cell to go somewhere else. Next thing from the defense was something about a master list of videos. Again, exhibit EEE, list of videos 1 through 15. Some of them contain nudity where Rick is naked. Moving along. Something about file numbers and chronological. McClelland objected and says it goes in conjunction with the zip files from the state. Gull said she would admit these 15 videos over objection of the state. So these videos did not have any audio, at least that were played in court. So we did not hear anything. So for like 2 hours, the jury is looking at this big screen TV that we cannot see. So we're just like looking at the jurors, essentially. I did not see any major facial expressions from anybody on the jury during any of these videos. So I don't want to waste a lot of time, but I wrote down for each one. So video 1, no audio, played on the screen. I wrote juror reactions, none. But several of the jurors would take detailed, I don't want to say detailed, but they would look down at their writing pads and take notes for all of these. So the second one between April 5th and 13th, 2023. Third was about 5 minutes. The fourth was 3 minutes from April 14th. The fifth was from April 17th, 2 minutes long. The sixth was from April 17th, 11:59 a.m. That one was 2 minutes and 48 seconds. Video 7, April 17th, 5:12 p.m., 26 minutes. Rosie said, may I fast forward? I wrote down no major jury reactions yet. Rosie again said, can I fast forward 2 minutes a couple of times during this 26-minute video? Video 8 from April 18th. I wrote down advanced to minute 536. So I guess I don't know what's happening. We had no real indication what was going on these videos. Number 9 was from April 21st at 9:41 a.m. It was 11 minutes long. Number 10 was April 28th at 8:56 p.m. This one was 56 minutes long. Again, Rosie would say after a while, can I fast forward 2 minutes? I wrote down to 14:03, 16:49 time of that 56 minutes, and he just kept doing that every few minutes. There was some kind of break for Doug Carter to testify. So I think they stopped at the number 10. I'm just going to go through this for videos 11 through 15. 11 was on May 13th at 12:45 p.m., 4 minutes. I wrote lots of note-taking at the end of that one video by the jurors. Video 12, May 20th at 3:14 p.m. Video 13, May 26, 2023. I believe they said 12 p.m., 4 minutes long. Video 14, May 30th, 2023. I think it was 7:09. I did not hear AM or PM. I believe that was 3 minutes. Finally, video 15 from June 20th, 2023 at 10:52 a.m. This one was pretty long, but I did not get a specific number. Next up, I wrote, Rosie said, can we have a recess to call a witness and go back to the videos later? So that may have been after 10. Here we go. I have to update my banner. Dougie Carter. Dougie Fresh. Testimony of Doug Carter. This is going to be quick. He was very quick. It was like less than 5 minutes. So, Doug Carter. Baldwin is asking him, what is your job? He said, superintendent, Indiana State Police for almost 20 years. Baldwin, what was your involvement in the investigation? Doug wasn't talking loud. I was like, speak up. So I believe Doug Carter said his involvement in the investigation was support. I might be wrong about that. Baldwin said which agencies helped. I believe the gist of what Doug said was dozens of agencies helped. Baldwin asked something where I just wrote few. I could not hear what Baldwin was saying. Doug Carter's response was about every county in Indiana was helping. I think that's what he said. He also said several federal agencies. So Baldwin said which federal agencies? Carter said ATF, which is, what is ATF? Alcohol and firearms? What's the T? I forget. Anyway, let me ask Siri. Hey, Siri. What does ATF stand for? Oh, tobacco. Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Thank you. Bye. Next. So Doug Carter said the federal agencies were ATF, FBI, and U.S. Marshals. Final page from yesterday, page 239. I took 239 pages of notes during this trial. So Saturday, November 2nd. Baldwin, was there a time the FBI was involved? Doug said yes. Baldwin, was there a time the FBI was not involved? Yes. Baldwin, when was that? Doug Carter seemed to say, I think it was around 2021. So Baldwin said, would it help if I gave you your deposition? He said yes. Then after looking at that, Baldwin said, when did the FBI stop assisting? Doug said August 2021. Baldwin said, so they were no longer being used. And Doug said yes. I wrote down next for Baldwin, ask them to do anything as they left the scene. At this point, McClelland asked for a sidebar. So Baldwin, McClelland, and Gull would stand in the corner talking. They come back. Baldwin says, was that your decision to have the FBI leave the investigation? Doug said it was. Final question from Baldwin. Did you ask them to return all their investigative documents? Doug said yes. Baldwin said, I'm done. And there were no questions from McClelland or the jury. McClelland said, is Doug, or Mr. Carter, or the witness, released from his subpoena? And Judge Gull said yes. We went back to I wrote down, we went back to Max Baker, returned to prior page with video details. So we went back to videos 11 to 15 after Doug Carter talked. I don't know, I guess he had a barbecue to go to. Rosie said something about a thumb drive with cell videos, prison cell, not cell phone. He asked Max Baker, does that have the date and time of the videos? And Max said yes. Rosie said no more videos or questions. So that was that. McClellan said, there will be more videos later on. Should I save my questions for Max Baker until after all the videos have been played for the jury on another day? So, like I said, it seems like yesterday they reviewed Rick being transferred from his cell to other places like a shower or maybe to see Dr. Walla. And McLean said, should I wait until after we see the video of Rick in a cell doing jumping jacks while singing God Bless America? And it was determined, yes, McClellan will wait to ask Max Baker questions until every video from Westville is shown. Gull said, yes, McClellan cross-examined later after the jury, after the videos are seen by the jury. Oh, Gull said, Auntie Gull is so nice to the jury. Like, seriously, that's the only time she seems happy is in the morning. She's like, it's so nice to see you this morning, jury members, or something, whatever they're called. She said that the jury had some activities planned for yesterday afternoon, but she did not say what they were talking about. So that's that. Now, I'm not going to be all behind your comments, so I have time to review comments finally. Hi, everybody who said hi. I'd like to get to facts and not say hi to 100 people. Hi, SC. I'm curious what your take was on the jury. So yesterday, I did not see any major reactions from them looking at these videos of Rick. Overall, I would say they're taking a decent number of notes. Some guy, like I think it's juror number 12, who sits in the back on the far end, he seems to be taking the most notes. So I am confident that they're going to at least deliberate and have some decent discussions where they're looking at facts and debating stuff. Nobody's really like not paying attention as far as I've seen. Hi, Kari. You'll leave soon enough and get sick of me. Ah. Hi, Purple Haze. Are you smoking doobie? Let's see. Somebody said somebody's trashing me. I don't pay attention to trash. Next. Kari says, just so you know, I got pizza after your live the other day. Your pizza looked better. Yeah, my Pizza Hut was pretty good. Justice Jane, yes. Justice for Abby and Libby. Hopefully, finally coming in the next few weeks. I'm looking for some comments. Hi, Lee. Yes, I'm exhausted, and I will be doing live chats again next week, probably around 8:30 or 9 p.m. Eastern once I find out what was going on inside. But I suggest listening to like Lawyer Lee, Andrea Burkhart, Beyond the Evidence, Turbo, Murder Sheet. They should all be still attending each day of the hearings, as well as obviously the local Indiana news. Sienna says Dr. Walla was so unprofessional. I don't think she should be allowed to continue in mental health. I'm not sure what to say. She was into the case before Rick was even arrested, so I don't know. I don't think she should have been posting on Facebook recommending podcasts to watch, which I laughed when I was not on her recommendation list. I was like, I'm glad I'm not on that list. Hi, Stargirl. Rick did see Dr. Walla every day during those 13 months, right? No. I don't know if she worked 5 days a week, but at some point he was seeing her every day she was working. I highly doubt. I I don't think she was there every day for 13 months. I believe she said at some point, maybe it was like once a week, maybe at the start. Baja said Dr. Walla looked up Kegan-Klein in some prison database she had access to, which is completely unprofessional. Well, she lost her job because of it, so live and learn. Hi, Carol. Did Bridge Guy know anything that the police did not make public? Well, Richard Allen told Dr. Walla that he saw a van and that interrupted his raping of Abby and Libby, and then he took them across the creek and killed them. So the police never made that public that Brad Weber, who came down this private driveway around 2:30. Obviously, the defense seems to be contesting whether he truly came home from work. I'm talking about Brad Weber at after he checked out at 2:02 p.m. and he worked about 20 to 25 minutes away. SM says they say he should not have known about the van driving by, but some say, and I agree, Dr. Walla could have told him, from what I understand. Uh, at that point, I mean, that was not like a major thing because from what I saw previously, there were screenshots that Brad Weber returned home at 3:30, not according to his mom. That was like on Reddit years ago. Well, why would Rick say, I drank three, I got a six pack before I went to the trail. I drank three before I killed them, and then I drank three later. Mm. Hi, outdoor loser. If Rick had not confessed, he would have had a pretty decent chance of not getting convicted, in my opinion. Well, I was in there for all of these guards talking about Rick's confessions, and they were whatever admissions, whatever you want to say. He said, "I did it. I killed Abby and Libby repeatedly to so many people. I listened to these phone calls to his wife and his mom. He did not sound psychotic, whatever. He sounded totally coherent. So I believe him when he said, I did it. I killed Abby and Libby. I totally believe him." Hi, Gulls Gavel. She hasn't been fired, but pulled from prisons from what I've read. I heard that she's working at another prison. Hi, the flaxen being. Thanks for missing my face. S&M, unpopular opinion on this channel, but I don't think he's guilty or that he'll be convicted. As I said at the beginning, I welcome a variety of opinions. Just be polite when you're talking about it. I do think he's guilty. After almost 4 years ago, I became interested in this case at the 4-year anniversary. I've thought about it almost every day, trying to figure out who was Bridge Guy, and since Rick was arrested, trying to figure out was he Bridge Guy. And finally, a few days ago, like I said, I heard his calls to his wife and mom. I've been at most of the hearings or most of the days of the trial, and I finally agree that I believe he is guilty. Whether he'll be convicted or not remains to be seen. Hi, Maureen. Did the defense subpoena Weber? Yes. So he testified for the prosecution. The defense asked him a few questions, and then I was looking down at my notes, writing down. But apparently, Andrew Baldwin, after he finished questioning him, handed him a piece of paper that was a subpoena. So whether Weber will be back remains to be seen. Hi, SB74. Weber's gun was also a P226, right? Thank you for sharing. Stargirl, is Weber on the stand tomorrow? I think they're going to continue with these videos. Yeah, tomorrow's Monday. The Westfield prison videos. Then, since Doug Carter testified about the FBI, I'm assuming Nicole Robertson, who wrote the Ron Logan search warrant, will be testifying at some point next week. Since Rick's wife was not in the audience on Saturday, It may have indicated she's going to testify at some point. What it's about, I'm not sure. I think some people said maybe it's because of these Google searches. Maybe she was looking at some of those search terms. I don't know. Stay tuned. Hi, KF. And hi to everybody's cat and dog that you use as your picture. I did not catch the fact that phone records backed up the fact that Brad Weber went straight home. That's good. Well, it was just referenced by Mullen that phone records back that thing up, but they didn't say how. So are they going to? Is the prosecution going to submit that to the jury to see so they make the proper decision? SM says because the state has worked so hard to defeat Rick. If he was guilty, they wouldn't be putting him in solitary and aligning with the judge who sustains all their objections and overrules the defense. That's not true. I've been in there, and it's not like Gull is agreeing with the prosecution all the time. She overrules them. She rules in favor of the defense sometimes. So that's not true. If he was guilty, they wouldn't be putting him in solitary. Well, he's like the most notorious prisoner or inmate in Indiana right now. You think he should be in general population in a county jail? You really think this 5'5" guy is going to not be assaulted by other people? I disagree. Lisa says, no way could one 5'4" guy do all this in that short amount of time, not leaving one drop of DNA. Well, he had a gun. If you're in eighth grade with your best friend on the trail or on the bridge, and some guy points a gun at you and says, do this, or I'm going to shoot you and your friend, are you really going to run away? And if you stab somebody, why do you have to transfer DNA? I'd like to hear some professional testimony on that. Hi, Charles. It's obvious to me that which prison is he going to, state or federal? I guess Charles is saying it's obvious to me that Rick is guilty. So is he going to state or federal prison? Well, I wouldn't be so quick to assume that the jury is going to say that he's guilty. I would be shocked if 12 people said he's not guilty after what I saw and heard in court. There's several different charges. I think one is that he is charged with kidnapping that led to murder, and the other is that just murder. So maybe the jury will find him guilty of the kidnapping that led to murder and not just the murder. We'll see. Hi, Mandy Moo. According to timeline, he'd only had 19 minutes for all that. I don't think so. I do think it's enough for one person, even 5'4", with a gun to do. At 2:14, they start to go down the hill. Apparently, according to Sarah Carbaugh, she saw a guy mighty and bloody on 300 at 3:58. So over like an hour and 40 minutes or so. It seems enough to me. The Flaxen being, I lol at Tobe Lesenby, not investigating any other murders. Well, I don't know how many murders there were in Carroll County for him to investigate. Sienna, hi Sienna. Rick was not scrawny in 2017, pretty rotund. Well, I don't know that there's a lot of photos of him in 2017. I've seen photos of him at Thanksgiving 2016, and I wouldn't say that he was huge. He seemed to gain weight after the murders and grow out his goatee. Hi, Miss Dog Lover. I thought that said something else. What about Doug Carter's tentacles? And hi to your dog. Uh, Wait for Doug Carter to explain his tentacles. The flaxen being, so they aren't allowed to show his face in closing argument? I'm not sure what that's referencing. SM said he was shorter than Libby and thinner. Well, according to Rick, he updated his fishing license to show he was 5'6" in uh, April 2017. Libby is 5'3", and the bridge guy he had a gun. Like if you're out on a trail and a bridge with your best friend, and some guy pulls out a gun and says to do something, are you really gonna start punching him? Hi, Jen. These Google searches are lame. Okay. I mean, I'm not saying that it makes him look guilty. Obviously, if you follow the Long Island serial killer, his Google searches are lame in a way that really show that he is like guilty. I'm not saying that these searches are pointing towards Rick's guilt. Hi, Scott. Does anybody know about 70 hairs in Libby's hand? Not that I remember hearing. There was one hair in Abby's hand that seems to be from Kelsey German, Libby's sister. We'll see. There may have been one reference to a hair in Libby's hand, but I don't know. Honestly, there was so much stuff that was said, it's hard to remember everything. This is Abby's hand, right? No, not 70, just one. Hi, Lacey. Killing of a Sacred Deer is a wild movie, man. I won't be watching it, thank you. I'll watch Airplane. Hi, Miss Doglover. Thank you. To you, does Rick sound like Bridge Guy? Yes, finally. After I listened to and watched his October 13th, 2022 interrogation, I finally thought, yes, he does sound like Bridge Guy. Hi, Marianne. Thank you. I appreciate it. Hi, Sleuth Intuition. Thank you. Applied Ballistics is a shooting range, I guess, in Lafayette. Again, I don't know how that would even like point towards Rick being guilty. Hi, Vicky. Most people's searches are worse than his, so it's a nothing burger. Yeah, I have an online store, and I think I have an item that says like a finger pointing up and says suspicious internet history or something. SM says guns are scary for sure, but he doesn't seem that confident. Confront two people, one who's bigger at that. Well, some man walked up to these two girls and said, "Guys, go down the hill." It seems like he did have a gun. What is the reaction that you would have with your best friend if you're in 8th grade? Hi, Lake. Miss Doglover says no normal person searches that. I mean, there was some like if you're looking up the most effed up stuff on Netflix, that's I don't know. We'll see. Hi, Victoria. Both Tom and Lauren think he's guilty. Lauren from Hidden True Crime. Yeah, I finally changed to guilty after hearing his phone calls. He did not sound psychotic. He sounded like somebody who's trying to finally reveal this huge secret to the two most important people in his life, his mom, his wife, and they just shot him down repeatedly, saying, "No, that's not true. You're not capable of this." And I understand that, like a mother thinking of this young boy that she raised could not be capable of that. I understand that, and also his wife, who was married to him since they were 19. However, that doesn't mean that he's not guilty. Scott says, I wonder if Rick's wife did any of the searches or watched any of the movies or if any of that will come out. Well, if she's going to testify, it might be about these searches. So we'll have to wait and see. Victoria says, a woman is not looking up that stuff on Google. Get real, people. Yeah, people. Hi, gaming and sleuthing. Rick mysteriously staring at that back row where we were all sitting. I had a straight view of him and he was staring hard. Yes. I was sitting next to gaming and sleuthing yesterday, and Rick was definitely looking back. It was kind of odd how he was looking back at us yesterday, which was the first time that his staring and looking at us was kind of, I'm not saying it's like pointing towards guilt or innocence, but it was staring. It was kind of weird. Turn your ass around. All right, sorry, Scott Daly. Couples watch movies together and we don't know anything about her. Correct. Purple Haze, they say he weighed 180 pounds at the time. I think that was when he was arrested. I'm already a half hour behind on comments. Hi, Yan? Rolling around in his crap or something. Haha. Well, I mean, eating it, something's wrong. Whether he's faking or not, doing some of these things are kind of crazy. But it was like every guard from Westville went on the stand and said, I spent a lot of time with him and I felt like he was faking the crazy stuff. However, Dr. Walla, at some point, she did say, even though she thought he was faking, later on she questioned whether or not it was true or not. Hi, Vanessa. Scott says, if Ricky was a sex addict, what does his wife say? Well, there's a lot of people who keep certain things from their spouse. So just because she thinks he's not capable of something does not mean that he did not have this fantasy for a long time. Hi, Charlotte. Those dear souls on the jury, the fragility of their minds must have been seriously tested by this. Yes, I mean, they're looking at close-up photos of two young girls with horrible wounds that ended their lives. Somebody asked me, I think, does the court system provide some kind of counseling to these jury members who have to look at this horrible stuff? I don't know the answer. Stargirl, I work with mental health. This one guy with years of mental health issues lies on a bed with poop and a duvet. When asked, shall we throw it? He said, I'll wait until I get another one. Yeah, is the defense ever going to say, the defense calls Richard Allen to the stand? Is Rick going to testify on his behalf? Victoria, quote unquote, should I die now? Like Kathy looked that up. Some people are so desperate to defend this monster. Hi, Mandy Moo. Rick is still human. If he smiles, he's guilty. If he does nothing, he's guilty. Yes. I mean, I've said a lot of times, like, I'm just trying to convey what you guys can't see or hear. And I'm not saying that if he does one thing, it means that he's guilty or not. Hi, Pengarth. Who said Rick was a sex addict? I think it was referenced at some point that Rick had a history of maybe being molested and molesting other children when he was younger. I don't think there's any sex searches that were revealed in court, like internet searches. However, hold up, wait a minute. In Rick's October 13, 2022 interview with Mullen and Liggett, he said something to the effect of, I don't want you searching what websites I've visited. That's not a direct quote, but it was definitely close to something like that. I don't know. Make up your own decision. Sparky says, if Rick had a sexual addiction, why was there no pornography on his phones? I'm not sure. I don't recall much testimony about what was on Rick's phones because they did not find Rick's phone from 2017. When they searched his house in 2022, they had about 16 phones in their home. but the one that was missing was from 2017. I want to know what the police did to find out from Rick's cell phone provider, which he said was Ting, Ting. When did Rick indicate to them he changed phones or changed phone numbers? Hi, mommy, Wolverine. Hi, Native American girl. Yeah, obviously there's a lot of differing opinions. I only ask that you guys be polite, sharing your opinions in the chat, or a moderator will ban you. Guilty as hell, no matter how they push the poor me thing. Scott says those kinds of guys use burner phones. Are you kidding? Yeah, I don't recall at any point. Somebody said in my member chat that Rick's cell phone number did not show up in the phones that pinged the tower. I do not recall that testimony saying Rick's phone did not ping on the tower. Does anyone recall hearing that and which witness said it? The flaxen being, they aren't going to add softcore stuff. It's not relevant. Scott said, I didn't see reasonable doubt before, but now I do. I was questioning when Bree Weber and Rayleigh Voorhees were describing the man they passed, and Rayleigh was saying, like, we left at 2:15 or 2:20. I was wondering, like, is Rick truly innocent? But I mean, that's changed since that time. I definitely think the prosecution needs to clarify for the jury how many minutes after this 126 bench number 2 photo these girls took, this group of 4 girls, did they see Bridge Guy entering the trail as they left? Stacy Diener from the prosecution asked Bree Wilbur, how long after that photo did you pass Bridge Guy? And she did not say the number of minutes. She said, we were still in the woods. I think the prosecution failed by not getting a specific number of minutes from both Bree and Rayleigh after that 126 photo, because it would match up to Rick's car at 127 on the Hoosier Harbor Store video, parking at CPS and then walking towards that area where Rick said he passed 3 girls. And one of the most interesting things that I heard Rick say was that the group that he passed, they seemed to be sisters, and like the older ones were babysitting, and the group of 4 girls who actually passed Bridge Guy, they were sisters. I think 3 of the 4 girls were sisters or half sisters. So there's that. Mommy Wolverine. It's weird that all the phone calls we've heard, he never asked about his daughter. Well, I think there's 700 phone calls. So we don't know if he's actually called or yeah, he calls, he's able to call going out. Nobody can call into his phone number. Did he ever call his daughter? If not, what's going on there? Hi, Maureen. Yes, I got into the trial yesterday morning. Victoria says he looked up stuff about kidnappings. I'm just looking for some topics we have not discussed. Hi, Jennifer. Rick's daughter being absent in all of this is super weird. I don't know that I'd say that. I don't think she lives close by to where these hearings are. I guess she and her husband moved. I don't know where, and if I knew where, I would not say to you people. Um, if you're around 30 and your dad gets arrested for murdering 2 kids, do you really want to go to the trial and have the local TV stations videotape you, show you on the 6 p.m. news, and then the next day at work, your coworkers are like, "Oh, I didn't know that was your dad who got arrested for killing kids." So I try not to read too much into his daughter not showing up. Hi, Ben. Sparky says, I agree with Jennifer. I would have thought Rick's daughter may have showed up to support her mom at the very least. So, for people who don't know, Rick's mom was showing up a lot to these hearings for each day of the trial. And she, unfortunately, like last weekend, she was outside the courthouse and tripped or something. And she got a concussion and broke her nose. So, she has not shown up in this past week. Obviously, that's horrible. And hopefully, she'll get better soon. Tangled, True, and Taboo needs to be investigated by multiple federal agencies. Ah, all I know is that if cops search my phone, I'm going down for many atrocities. Hi, Randy. Nice to meet you and your wife. Do you smoke doobie at Grateful Dead concerts? Scott, too many coincidences. Yes, I do believe there are too many coincidences. The defense in one, I think in the Frank's memo, volume one of many, they said at a certain point, coincidences stop being coincidences. So we're supposed to believe that Richard Allen pulled into CPS parking lot at around noon and then left at 1:30. And then right after he leaves, somebody else on a Monday afternoon at 1:30, another man dressed like Rick pulls into the same spot. And then he's seen passing 4 girls in the same spot where Rick passed 3 girls. I don't think so. Also, 2 days after the girls were found, Rick said he was there. I think he walked into the sheriff's station and said, I was there because he told his wife he was there. So he went to report that he was there. February 16th, he said, I was there 1 to 3. February 18th is when Dan Doolin called him and they met at the grocery store parking lot. And he said, I was there 1:30 to 3:30. So within the first week, twice he said, I was there at the time of the murders. Hello? That doesn't add up. Also, in the October 26, 2022 interview with Holman, interrogation, Rick's wife comes into the room and Holman leaves. It was very hard to hear on this video, so don't quote me on this stuff. But when Rick's wife cries, unfortunately, she's very emotional. I'm not saying that's bad. Like I can't hear her. I mean, this is obviously horrible for her. It's hard to hear her, and she kind of like mumbles and talks low when she's crying. But quite a few people thought they heard her say to Rick when they're alone in this room, October 26, 2022, something along the lines of, "You told me you were on the trail, but not on the bridge." This is 13 days after their house was searched, and he never told her that he was actually on the bridge. Not saying it means he's guilty, but feel free to disagree. Hi, Wampa. Good evening. In France. Reminder that psychology is a well researched field and mental breakdowns don't lead someone to admit to a murder they didn't commit. That's just not a thing. Perhaps murders they did commit, though. Well, some people apparently do get interrogated by police for 8 to 12 hours, and they do admit to committing murders they did not commit. However, one thing that I cannot get past is that, like, over a 9-month period, Rick is admitting to all these people, guards, the warden, his psychiatrist, his wife, his mom, other guards. So from like, I think March 2023, on March 21st, he said he found God. In April, he's making these phone calls and through June to his family saying, I did it. I killed Abby and Libby. And his wife and mom are like, no, we don't want to hear it. Then the last one was February 2024 when he's at Wabash. He's no longer in solitary confinement under like the onus guard's watch, and he said that he was guilty. So over such a long period of time, I'm not buying it. Sorry, that he's not telling the truth. Hi, Tracy. Tracy said Rick's daughter just had a baby. That's why she's not in court. All right, thank you. YouTube bad actors. No, I'm not going back. I'm done. Indiana. Ah, I will be doing daily live chats at probably 8:30 PM Eastern, but I suggest watching a lot of the other people who are there covering it and not me. Victoria says, "Best kidnapping and hostage movies ever made. Most disturbing movies on Netflix." Sure, that was Kathy. Well, wait and find out to see if she gets on the stand and says some of those were her. Maybe she was searching at least the Delphi murder stuff. Hi, Purdue RN. Thank you. Hi, Aaron. Why did the FBI stop helping? According to Doug Carter, he said he asked them to stop. There was absolutely no further questions. I don't know why Baldwin seemed to make such a big issue of this. And he finally had Doug Carter on the stand and he asked him like 6 to 7 questions. So I don't know if FBI agent Nicole Robertson is going to be testifying next week and they'll try and find out more information from her. However, how's that going to take away from the jury hearing Richard Allen tell his mom, "I killed Abby and Libby"? Highly, thank you. I try my best. Tracy says two main things that point to Rick is he was there and the bullet, but all DNA found at the crime scene is female. Well, there was not any other male DNA that was shown to be like some other random dude that takes attention away from Rick. So I don't know like a lot about anything, especially like how murder scenes unfold, how much DNA is at a crime scene. But from what I've seen, obviously these girls were killed by a sharp object to their neck. How much touching of their clothes would a killer have to do that? I'm not saying that out loud, but okay. Hi, Dorothy. Dorothy's not that Dorothy Gale. So Rick is guilty of watching horror movies. Got it. Yeah, I'm not saying that his searches point towards guilt of killing Abby and Libby. Hi, uh-uh. Tubaboo? Ah, Tubabo? Kumi? I don't even know what that means. This case seems handled so poorly. I totally agree. But that does not mean that Rick is innocent. Hi to all my Australian peeps, the 3 people from Australia who watch me. Blinker fluid, hi. I don't understand the point of Carter's testimony. It seems to be like the defense has a few times want to take attention away from Rick and point out to law enforcement not doing a good job investigating. I mean, obviously, Rick came forward 3 days after the murders on February 16th. Again, 2 days after that, on the 18th, he talked to Dan Doolin, and police did not question Richard Allen for another 5.5 years. And there's so like, we've heard about this missing evidence, videotapes. I really wanna hear from Doug Carter to say what police have learned from all their mistakes. What have they done to make sure these mistakes are not made again in Indiana investigations? Tangled, true, and taboo. There is no way one man did this. Evidence says otherwise. Well, what's the evidence that says otherwise? I think one man could do it and did do it. Randy, did you get your Swifty on at the airport? No, but on the speaker, they said, if you want to sing a Taylor Swift song, come to the middle section or something. I declined. But I do like Taylor's song, Shake It Off, in case you were wondering. I left yesterday, Ratatouille. It's exhausting, and there's other people who are doing live chats and, like, writing a lot of notes, so I felt like I was not needed, and it was too much. Hi, Bernie. Nice to see you. Was Abby's mom, Anna, there? Yeah, I'm pretty sure she was there. I did not really see her the first few days, but I did see her there pretty consistently. We are at 1 hour, 10 minutes. I'm probably going to 1 hour and 59 minutes. Purple Haze says, "No doobie today." All right, thank you for clarifying your doobie schedule. Hi, Sparky. Thank you. I appreciate it. And seriously, everybody who donated, I really appreciate you. You gave me a big dent in my travel costs, so I'm extremely appreciative to everybody who gave me some of their cash. Thank you. I did not make money, just to be clear. I put a dent in my costs. It did not make money. A lot of sources. Sarasaurus Rex. Having a tablet and being able to make 700 calls to family is not solitary confinement. I mean, I can understand how they say, like, if he does not have human interaction other than these suicide companions, that is a horrible situation for anybody to be in. However, if he is guilty and he is seeing what his future is, like every day in this horrible circumstance, is he acting out because of that? And is he truly guilty, but he's saying, I'm not guilty, hoping that some jurors will feel like he's not guilty so he won't have to deal with this horrible situation for the rest of his life? Hi, Laura. Thank you. Rick, the only one that called after Bridge Guy picture posted. I think he said he walked into the Carroll County Sheriff's Office after he told his wife he was there. So did he feel obligated since he told his wife that he was there? But I agree that it's kind of odd that he would come forward after the photo of him on the bridge was released and the video or the audio. The only one that called after Bridge Guy picture posted. No, I think like as I said before, David McCain was on the trails 2 to 3, and he came forward afterwards. He said he did not see Richard Allen. So part of this is like these people were on the trail at the time that Rick said he was there, at least in 2017. Nobody saw him on the trail, on the bridge, on the bench. Why is that? Hi, Jeremy, the bot. I haven't seen you in a while, I think. Yeah, I did a live chat the other night. After my live chat that was had technical difficulties, somebody at the end said, "Do a live stream from Dairy Queen," since I went to Dairy Queen like 5 times in 2 weeks. So I did a live chat from Dairy Queen, then I went to get my Pizza Hut, but I wrote Pizza Butt on my phone. It was a disaster, but some people enjoyed it. TK says, "A lot of channels based around the single case are trashing all the other channels and banning everyone in the comment section." I don't care. Um, I don't care. I try to avoid the nonsense and the members of the freak squad, who I call them. Coastal Hampton style. Thank you for sharing with us every little detail. I believe they have the right person behind bars. Yeah, I tried my best. As I said during reading my notes, I did my best to write every single question and answer, but I missed stuff, so I apologize. Maureen, did the defense yesterday seem like they were winning or losing? Well, they did not convince me to vote Rick not guilty, so I say that's losing. Hi, Mario. What would prevail in your opinion? You mean like the final verdict? I said before that I'll be shocked if 12 jurors say he's not guilty. I'll be shocked. I finally changed my mind to guilty, and I have not seen the 127 screen captures of the car headed towards CPS, which to me totally adds up to Rick saying in 2017, I arrived at 1:30. So I think the jury could have a guilty verdict. High necessary evil. I don't put up with trash, I burn it. And yes, I'm smoking a blunt. Uh-oh. High rainy. Is the jury allowed to compare notes prior to the lawyers resting the case? Well, one of the greatest features that I've become aware of is that the attorneys ask the questions of the witnesses, and then the jury members have a chance to ask right then and there. They write down the questions on a piece of paper. Judge Gull reads it. She meets on the side with the attorneys. They review the questions. Then she comes back and she reads the question to the witness. So I think it's really good that the jurors are getting these questions answered while the witness is there. I don't know the answer to your question, but I would assume in the deliberations, they would share their notes and thoughts. Gull's gavel. Who are you going to follow now that you're not in court? Before I said there's a few people that I met in the line who are taking fairly detailed notes and doing either live chats or videos after. Andrea Burkhart, Hidden True Crime, Lawyer Lee, Beyond the Evidence, and Turbo, I think are the 5 people who are taking a lot of notes each day. Also Murder Sheet, but I don't know when they get their episodes out. So I'll also be watching like the local Indiana news because they have like quite a few members of the media. They have to take photos of their notes from the day, share it with each other. So I'd say they're probably the most reliable for like direct quotes because the media gets the front row and it's hard to hear sometimes. Hi, Salty Beach. If I had to vote today, I would vote guilty. And if you guys, I know you watched me for a while. For a long time, I would say I would vote not guilty. But once I heard this past week, those phone calls, I'm not lying. I'm sure there's other people who heard differently. He did not sound psychotic at all. He would talk about like other normal stuff. There was one phone call. I think he starts off saying, "I did it." I believe Richard Allen. I don't think he's a liar to his mother and his wife. Pengarth, was she Lee Kerr? I don't even know who you're. I know who the Lee Kerr person was. I mean, I know that online username, which I read their post on Reddit and I was like, next. So I don't know who that was, nor do I care. Aaron says the female DNA is what is puzzling and the fact they didn't test it. So unprofessional. Well, they had to have tested it to know that it was a family member and female. Yeah, it was kind of puzzling overall. Tangled, true, and taboo. A guilty verdict will condone all the illegal stuff. Well, I said I don't like to highlight curse words. All the illegal stuff the state has done. It cannot be acceptable. Well, murdering 2 kids and admitting to it, in my opinion, is more unacceptable. But I mean, I agree that there, like some of the stuff that law enforcement has done is not acceptable too. But the thing I care about most is a man who thinks it's acceptable to rape 2 kids. His plan doesn't go according to his fantasy, and his solution is to murder those 2 kids so they can't talk. That's not acceptable to me. TK says the problem with following lawyers is they are going to be naturally biased in the direction of the type of practice they do. Good thing I'm not a lawyer. Loxy says Dr. Walla helped Richard Allen. He liked her and she liked him. She wanted him to have in-person family visits with his wife. She wanted him to have certain items in her or in his cell. She did not seem to hate Richard Allen or be trying to convict him. Hi, Dawn. The public did not know the gun was chambered on the bridge till video, but Rick confessed to messing with his gun on the bridge. That did it for me. He also did admit to Holman that he would leave a gun in the chamber, or sorry, a round in the chamber. So yeah, I'm fine admitting that I'm wrong about everything. Like I simply don't care. So a lot of the times I've been saying I believe the motive of Bridge Guy was to see two girls touch each other so his DNA would not transfer. And obviously, according to Richard Allen, he wanted to rape two girls, which I have no idea how that would play out. But anyway, I wondered if he pulled his gun back to intimidate them at the end of the bridge. Did that round pop out? He picked it up and put it in his jacket pocket. When he was moving Libby's body or the branches and leaning over, did that bullet fall out? And it was found near like Libby's, to the right of Libby's, um, it was near Libby's right foot, like 6 to 8 inches away. I don't know. I would have liked to have heard some more detailed like explanation how this all played out from Rick to Dr. Walla or on the phone. Maybe Rick was ready to tell his wife and mom some more details, but literally every time he tried to say, I'm guilty, I killed Abby and Libby, they would say, stop talking. No, you didn't. Loxley says, I guess Dr. Walla did not get fired from the company. She was working for Centurion, just the prison Westville. Hi, Courtney. I forgive you for having something to do. Oscar says, we all know it's him, but if you look at the comments, some people have a disagreeing opinion, which is fine. Like I say, please just be polite to each other. Hi, Laura. Thank you so much for gifting memberships. Whoop-de-doo, a membership to Tom. Thank you, though, for your generosity. I'm sure everybody's so excited about them. Ah. Hi, LS. I love how everybody has like their dog and they're afraid to actually show their picture and their real name. LS, aka Chester's mom. That must be Chester. Hi, Chester. Hi, Charlie. Hi, Pablo. Those are dogs that watch my live chats or fall asleep like their owners do. I cannot believe so many people want to make excuses for Rick. He is the guy. I understand there are some doubts, and there's not like huge evidence that's like, oh, okay, his DNA was found on their bodies or whatever, or their blood was found in his car. But it's like this guy is telling so many people, I did it. I killed Abby and Libby. Like for me, the only thing I've cared about is identifying Bridge Guy and holding him accountable. Richard Allen is saying, I am Bridge Guy. I was Bridge Guy. I'm the one who killed them. But people are like, I don't really believe you. I need to continue like think of conspiracy theories and why a man would pick up a phone when he's alone in a jail cell or prison cell and tell his mom, I'm a murderer. I killed these girls. Tell his wife, I killed these girls. People want to come up with excuses saying, oh, medication, alone in solitary confinement, yada, yada, yada. Like, isn't there also a possibility that he's actually telling the truth? Feel free to disagree. I don't care. Our opinions mean nothing. The jurors' opinions are what matter at this point. Loxy, he put himself there before getting arrested. Exactly. He said, I was there within the first week. Twice he told people, I was there at the time of the murder. So how did that change to noon to 1:30 5 years later? That timeline does not add up. Purple Haze husband, is his name? Oh, I want to try and come up with the first name for Hayes. Mr. Hayes had never seen the pic of Bridge Guy until last week. He said Rick looks just like Bridge Guy. So this is an interesting point because I kind of disagree, at least with the face. So I've said this so many times. In the 2-second video clip that we have seen or that was released at Bridge Guy, which I saw the bridge guy video 3 times in court, and the 4th time I was behind the TV, so I only heard what was on it. I don't see the face of Richard Allen in the bridge guy 2-second video. However, I think there's, like, 2 faces, like, there's one at the beginning and one at the end that looks different. So because it's so blurry, I think, like, the true identity of bridge guy could be something like a 3rd face. I do think the height and the body type and the small shoes of bridge guy do match Rick, or are similar to Rick. I'm now, like, 50 minutes behind on comments. We're going another half hour, and then we're doing better things with our lives. I'm hungry and tired. Loxy, did he sound like Bridge Guy? Yes. Richard Allen, in his October 13th, 2022 interview, sounded like Bridge Guy. And also this guy, Brian Harshman, who listened to all of Rick's phone calls, like every one of Rick's phone calls. McClelland said, who do you think, or he said, do you think Richard Allen, that's his voice on Bridge Guy video? And he said, yes. I know some people will say, well, he's law enforcement. What do you expect him to say? But okay, moving along. Krusty Abaya Sleeve Pondu. Is that on your driver license? Sis, the public know about what? Sis, is that for me? The public knew about the branches before he was arrested? Um, I don't think so. I don't think it was until the Franks memo, volume 1 of many, where it was publicly revealed that there were branches or sticks on the bodies. I think there was rumors that there may have been something there, but nothing by police. Didn't he say he put branches on them? Yes, to Dr. Walla, he said he put tree branches on them and that he waited to make sure that they were dead. Hi, Stacy's mom. Sounds like the defense team is inept. Well, once McClelland rested, which was surprising to hear him say, the prosecution rests his case. I was like, okay, that's it. But I mean, he had convinced me by that time that Rick is guilty. So Baldwin was like, well, we're having trouble charting our course, something along those lines. And I was like, that ain't good. He said they're having trouble like tracking down witnesses, and I don't know. We'll see. Oscar, why did Rick even confess he was on the bridge in the first place? Apparently, he told his wife that he was on the trail. And I don't know, maybe he felt obligated to go to the police because if he truly was bridge guy, he passed the 4 girls around 1:30. So he did not know, even though he maybe had a mask up to, or some kind of scarf up to his nose and his head was covered. He did not know if those girls would come into CVS and say to their mom, like, that's that guy I saw on the trail. I mean, this is only like 2 days after the bodies were found. So maybe he was concerned that if he did not come forward, it would make him look guilty for later on. And it seems like now, if he never came forward, this case would never have been solved. If he is bridge guy, which I believe him when he says he was. Sorry, somebody's like doing some lawn maintenance outside. Should I yell? Shut up. I'm busy. Hi, Maureen. Thank you so much. Thank you. Hats off to you. Thank you. Where are we here? Yeah, I hope all this evidence will become public. I really want to see the 127 video or the screenshots of the car. Because if he's lying in 2022 that that was not his car and that he was gone by 1:30, why was his car heading towards CPS instead of leaving? Makes no sense. Isles of Shoals. Hi. What is your take on the van story? Was it in Discovery or not? Oh, so you're saying if Rick got Discovery early April 2023, would he have seen Brad Weber said he drove a van and then Rick would somehow became crazy and told Dr. Walla, I saw a van. However, I'm trying to remember all the stuff I heard in court. I forget who it was who's testifying. It may have been Harshman. He said there were no reports that included a reference to Brad Weber owning a van. So, no, from what I recall, any kind of legal investigative document that Rick was given as part of discovery did not mention Brad Weber owning a van and driving it down the private drive. Hi, Cinder. Lauren Matthias is doing a good job reporting as well. Is that, I don't know, Lauren from Hidden True Crime, if that's her last name or not. But Lauren from Hidden True Crime, I met her a few times. She's very nice. SC, do you believe the prosecution did a good job of presenting the timeline of the case? No, I do not. And I'm concerned that the jury does not have the true facts because the prosecution did not do a good job of, like I said before, I'm not sure if you were taking a nap. Bree Wilbur and Rayleigh Voorhees, I really feel like their testimony needs to be clarified by the prosecution before the jury starts deliberating. They need to say, the jury does have a copy of the 126 bench photo, but the prosecution has to make sure the jury knows how many minutes after that 126 bench number 2 photo these 4 girls passed a guy who they later said that guy's description matched who they saw in the screenshot of Libby's video of Bridge Guy. Necessary evil. I think he did it. I don't think they've proven it. Well, to me, Richard Allen proved it to me. Him telling his mom and his wife in a rational voice, and sometimes he was crying. I believe him that he's being honest to his wife and mother when he said he killed Abby and Libby. Hi, Saspire. Did you ever feel the aura of evil while being near Rick in court? I would not say I felt an aura of evil. I just felt like it was so, I don't know if awkward is the word. Like this man is accused of killing these 2 kids. Like 10 to 15 feet away is Libby's grandparents, her sister, Abby's mom, Abby's grandparents. I don't know, it's just so odd that he'll like stand up, put his hands behind his back, and like sway back and forth. Look at this is like during a break. And she's like, ho hum, I'm on trial for killing 2 kids. And just like looking out at the audience, I don't know, it's weird. But that's that. Tangled, True, and Taboo says the van was known years ago. Well, for Richard Allen saying, I think he said he did not think about the case a lot in the 5 years until his interrogation. How would Richard Allen know about the van if he's innocent and did not follow the case? Hi, Danielle. I think he's guilty, but I don't think he will be convicted. I'm still not sure. I would not be surprised if he's convicted of the kidnapping that led to murder. At least that part. We'll see. And I would think if there's a hung jury, the prosecutor, if he gets a second chance to try Rick, I think he would try a second time. I don't think he would like let down the family members or Abby and Libby, especially after Rick has said so many times, I killed Abby and Libby. We shall see. Sorry, yeah, there's somebody like cutting down a tree that's probably gonna fall on me. Hopefully. Justice Jane. End my misery of hosting a live chat. Hi, 856 people. We have 25 more minutes left. Then I can go eat. I wonder if Richard's daughter knew Abby and Libby. She was 22 at the time of the murders. So she was about to get married later 2017. So I doubt she was really familiar with them. But she was photographed, I think, on her bed or her parents' bed. I think it was her bed. On her mom's Facebook, she's wearing a tie-dye shirt that may have been a memorial t-shirt after the girls were killed. which was nice of her to, like, care about these girls. Hi, Judy. There was also a grave hunter they stopped and searched that was in a white van. I don't recall that. Puppy power, yes. Rick's voice in his October 2022 interrogations did, to me, finally seem like he does sound like a bridge guy. DB, you were wrong saying I've only thought about this case 50 minutes a year. I've thought about it every day for 4 years. Anyway, we won't call you a douchebag yet. Maybe next time you make a shady comment. Anyway, we love every opinion. What changed for you a few days ago? Was it just hearing his voice on the call, or was it what he said? I mean, it was all of these officers from Westville saying, "This is what Rick, whatever, admitted to me." I believe he was faking the crazy stuff. So it's just like so many people, the warden, Dr. Walla, the guards, and then finally hearing these phone calls. I'm not lying. Like, he sounded totally normal, like a guy who truly did recently find religion, and he's finally trying to do the right thing and tell his wife and mom, "It really was me. I am guilty." I mean, there's just nothing on these phone calls to me that really make me question that he was not mentally well. I will follow up with that saying, at some point during some of these phone calls, I think we heard 7 total. He did say, "I have not gotten a lot of sleep," or "I need a lot of sleep." He did also say, "I feel like I'm losing my mind," something like that. So I acknowledge that maybe there were obviously some mental issues going on. I'm just saying on these calls over, I think, several weeks or months, he sounds like he's being honest and he's not psychotic. He's not telling a lie. He's telling the truth. So after hearing him, I believe him that he is bridge guy. He said, "I did it. I killed Abby and Libby." I don't have my direct quotes, but I'll have to go back to my notes. But yes, it's finally after hearing all this stuff, it finally changed my opinion, and I would vote guilty finally. And I don't know what could change my opinion, not that my opinion matters, to go back to Rick being not guilty. I think the timeline adds up. The 127 car, parking at CPS, passing the 4 girls, getting to platform 1 of the bridge. Abby and Libby show up. He apparently did say he followed them on the trail, so maybe after witness 4 or whatever, Betsy Blair left, he did leave the bridge and started behind that barricade. It just all adds up to me, especially if they're going to prove that Brad Weber did arrive home around 2:30, which would add up to Rick seeing a van. I still want to see like video or at least a picture to show the height difference of the private drive down to the creek level. So if Rick said go down the hill, they go down to the private drive. Did he again take them down even further? Like it was mentioned that there's maybe a 20-foot drop. I want to know how Brad Weber could drive down the private drive and not see Rick and maybe a naked Abby and Libby. So would they have been out of view of Brad Weber driving? And that's what caused Rick to be like, somebody's at that private drive or with the house at the end of the drive. We have to go across the creek. That totally adds up to me. I'm still not sure how he could have been the guy walking on 300 and is not seen by people at Mears parking lot or the Hoosier Harvester camera. Whether he went the full way into a field around the back of Hoosier Harvester, I don't know. But somebody was asked, and maybe Mullen, did you even look to see if there was another camera at the back of Hoosier Harvester to see if like Rick or Bridge Guy walked there? And they're like, no. I mean, the police were asked so many times, did you do this? And they're like, no. Yeah, it's not competent, but it doesn't mean that Rick is innocent. Mr. and Mrs. Nobody, you say you decided he's guilty. What made you decide? Like I just said, Rick saying repeatedly, including to his mother and his wife, I did it. I killed Abby and Libby. I believe Richard Allen. I don't think he's a liar. I do not think he said that because he lost his mind. It's like a 9-month period from March 2023 when he finds God until maybe like April 3rd was the first like official confession. Although I forget when he wrote a letter to the warden saying, I want to confess. I think there's some issue where the warden dated that March 5th, but it may have been April 5th. Up until like, I guess 9 months later is February 2024. He's still saying stuff in Wabash prison that says he's guilty. How much more are you forcing me to do this? 18 more minutes. What is this name? LARP Omega. What was the most affecting moment of the trial so far for you? I would say hearing the phone calls to Rick's wife and mom, including sometimes when he was crying. I believe him. I've wanted to know for so long who was Bridge Guy, and Rick essentially said, I was Bridge Guy. So I'd say that's like the most affecting moment. Other than that, I don't want to like say anything nice about myself, but Libby's mom or grandmother coming up to me and saying she appreciated my videos, that they're fact based. I did not plan to talk to the families at all because I totally understand like their perspective in this courtroom is totally different from mine. So I don't want to be like, hi, do you ever watch my YouTube videos? Like, I hope they don't. But Libby's grandmother came over to me and said, I just want to say I appreciate that your videos are fact based, which some whatever, we won't go there. So I appreciated that. Hi, Malibu. Not being able to hear the testimony and see the evidence at trial, thank you, Judge Gull, makes it very difficult to assess guilt or innocence. I agree. And especially with us, like the people in the courtroom trying our best to write stuff down as quick as possible. We're not like getting direct quotes most of the time. So I said during a lot of my recaps, don't quote me on this stuff. I did my best to try and like summarize some of it. So hopefully at one point you guys will be able to hear all the evidence. I don't know that you're going to want to read a few thousand pages of testimony, but hopefully it will be made public at some point. Hi, caricature contest. Yeah, I'm sorry we didn't get to meet. Oh, I'm sorry your daughter has pneumonia. I'm glad she's better. Yeah. I really appreciate your generosity. I took out the woman who let in Delphi who let me stay at her house the first night. I wanted to thank her for being so hospitable. So the $50 caricature contest and ah, we went to a Mexican restaurant called Reconcito, R-I, uh-oh, I don't know how to spell it in English or Spanish. Anyway, I think it's Riconcito. It's like a minute from the courthouse. It's very affordable. We both got steak and shrimp, I think for $19.99 or $16.99 plus drinks. It was $39. So I just left $50. So thank you, Caricature Contest, for your generosity. TK, I just still can't believe they did not try to put anything together with the clients, the catfishing accounts, and all this. Like, what are the chances it's not connected? I mean, come on. Well, apparently, if Richard Allen has this fantasy for a long time and wants to rape these two girls, what does that have to do with Kegan Kline talking to Libby? Unfortunately, as a lot of people have said, it's kind of sad that the morning that Libby is murdered, a random guy murders her and her friend. And in the morning, a guy is catfishing her for sexual reasons also. I'm over an hour behind comments, so I apologize for missing hundreds of comments. Let me scroll through to see what we did not talk about. We're almost done in 14 minutes. I don't know what's going on outside with that noise, but I can't stop it. The flaxen being laughing at, I remember people saying 1 hour is not enough time. Well, how long does it take to go down the hill and then another hill and cross the creek and put a sharp object into somebody's neck? I think it could happen in under an hour or even under a half hour. Scott says Richard Allen could have been a star witness. He had to wonder why they weren't coming back to talk to him again. I know. It's like, what was he thinking every day for 5.5 years? Like, I told them I was there. And in April 2019, they're like, no, we're looking for Justin Timberlake's cousin. Well, I'm saying that because the young guy sketch. Hi, Blue Line. Tobe Lesenby has assisted on murder investigations, but none of his own. All right, thank you for clarifying. Are you Tobe? Uh, Krusty says Brian Koberger is accused of stabbing 4 adults in Idaho in about 25 minutes in and out. I think Brian Koberger is guilty, but other people disagree. Hi, JM. Ken Maines is, I guess, he has a YouTube channel. I forget what it's called. Unsolved No More or something. Did a video about 2 years ago, and he believes the killer had all intentions of kidnapping them until it went wrong. Well, I don't think that adds up to me, if I'm being honest. Especially Richard Allen. He lived at home with his wife and maybe his daughter, so like he can't bring them home. I guess that's assuming he would take them home and keep them in his basement or something. Well, it seems like the 4 girls were pretty certain Bridge Guy entered from the Freedom Bridge area. So if he arrived there and parked there, how is he going to get somebody from like 15 minutes away on the bridge, like 2 girls, to walk this trail or the street without being able to tell anybody passing by that they're being kidnapped? BGOG, does Tom have pets? No, just spiders that I try to kill and I miss them. Hi, Olivia. According to a certain defense YouTuber, I'm fine with people saying like other channels, like I just don't want people dissing or saying rude things about other channels. I'm fine promoting other people as long as they're not batshit crazy. She claims the jury was more upset over seeing the video of Rick more than the photos of Abby and Libby dead. I'm just being honest. Yesterday, I was mostly looking at the jury as they were looking at Rick doing whatever. I did not see any noticeable facial expressions. Sorry, I don't know what they're cutting outside. Tangled. The bullet did not fall out on the bridge, though. It was under Abby. No, it was not under Abby. The bullet was like 6 to 8 inches from Libby's foot. Oh, yeah, I want to show you guys this. Please stand by. So I was looking at a Indiana newspaper online, trying to catch up on Friday, which I missed, and they showed a photo. And from my recollection, here we go. Tom's going bye-bye. From my recollection, somebody who's I think saw the crime scene photos in the courtroom recently at the hearings. They referenced like a tree where the bodies were found had like it branched off into two trees. So today I was looking at this old photo, and it seems like this tree back here where I circled the purple. I think this is like two in one. So I don't know if this here is somewhere near where the bodies were found, because I've always wondered, like, where in the woods was it? So I'm not saying for sure, but I looked at this photo today, which was on a recent Indiana news website, maybe Fox 59 or Wish TV, and maybe this is where they were found. Not saying for sure, just saying maybe. We have 8 more minutes. Hi, Mustang. A gun and a knife make things possible, in my opinion. Yes, I think if somebody's pointing a gun at 2 kids, they're not gonna run away, especially if he says, "I'm gonna shoot you or your best friend if you run away." Hi, Louise. Do we know if those are the only searches? Well, those seem to be the only topics or search terms that the prosecution felt were, I guess, somewhat suspicious for Rick, that they wanted the jury to even consider that when they're considering innocence or guilt. Yeah, I'm over an hour behind on comments. Oh, well, what are you gonna do? A few weeks ago, I was like, or last week, I was 3 hours behind. Hi, troublemaker Baker. What the hell is that noise outside? Has it been said in trial that there was no adult videos on his phone? I do not recall them saying that there's no adult videos on his phone. I also don't recall them saying that his phone did not ping at the crime scene. I may have missed it though. Hi, Jules. Why did he have so many random phones? So I have like maybe 4 old phones for that I've used over the years. So he lived with his wife and his daughter. So maybe over whatever 20 years of cell phones, they would keep them. I'm almost certain they got 16 cell phones from his house in October 2022. Why was his phone from 2017 not there? Why did he? I mean, obviously, over 5.5 years, he may upgrade his phone, but I don't know. There's some kind of mention, like maybe Rick's wife recycled a phone. Maybe she's going to testify about that. 6 more minutes. Hi, Jason. The state has been trying to protect Alan. It does them no good to try and prosecute a dead person. Foolish thinking otherwise. I agree that I just don't think he should have been in a county jail, or at least Carroll County, in general population with other inmates. However, I just think it's totally unacceptable that it took a year and 9 months for him to be moved to Cass County. He had no attorney when the safekeeping order was done by Tobe Lesenby. As soon as his attorneys were assigned in mid-November 2022, they or Judge Gull, who also got assigned in November 2022, there should have been a hearing now that he had attorneys to get him out of Westville. I mean, a year and 9 months later, they said, okay, he can go to Cass County. And I know that Rosie at some point said in February 2023 is when he first started talking to the Cass County Sheriff about maybe getting a spot for Rick. But the defense did not officially ask for Rick to be moved out of Westville until 5 months after he had been there and like 2 days after he started confessing. So that's that. We'll move on. Laura says when they asked for Bridge Guy to come forward, Rick tipped himself. I mean, I could see how people could say, well, if he's innocent, he came forward to help. But also, if he's guilty and did not come forward, could that come back to bite him in the rear end? Sparky says that phone will never be found. It's probably buried with a sock or something. Well, I wanna know, like, what other kind of, like, tracking did police do to figure out what happened to that phone? Why could they not contact Ting, Ting, which is Rick said that was his phone provider. Why not say, when did Richard Allen say he changed his phone from his 2017 phone to another phone? Hello? That was not presented at all at the trial. Hi, beach girl. How old would you say Brad Weber is, and do we know if he lived by himself at the time of the crimes? From what I've heard is that his mom and his dad are what people call snowbirds. Like, when the weather gets cold, they move to, like, Florida or Arizona. So I think his parents went to a warmer climate. So he was either living there at the house or at least checking in at the house. He, on the stand, looked to be about maybe 60. He really didn't get dressed up. He had, like, a blue T-shirt with, like, I think suspenders. That's all I have to say. I think that answered your question. We're down to the final 2 minutes. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, moderators, for moderating the crazy people. Hopefully people were polite. Thank you to all the people who donated. I appreciate you immensely. Thank you. So this next week, I guess I have to start scheduling them. After this, I guess I'll schedule at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Saturday, or no, Monday through Friday. I will do updates, but like I said, like, pay attention to other people who are actually there, not me. All right, that's it. We're done. Bye. That's all I have to say. So thank you for watching, sharing your opinions, and I'll see you tomorrow night at 8:30 Eastern. Bye.